Hey there, thanks for joining me on Tropical Weather Impact. It is Friday, August the 29th. A bit of a somber day here in the New Orleans area and surrounding Gulf Coast. If you've lived down here long enough, you know August 29th is a day that many people would like to erase off the calendar. We're going to break down today being the anniversary of Katrina, Ida, and impacts from Isaac. We'll talk individually about those storms and what they impacted and how they impacted the area. We're also going to check in on a feature that the National Hurricane Center is watching deep out in the tropics. But let's just start off the top here by saying there are no tropical threats to the United States right now, no substantial threats for the next probably week and a half to maybe even 2 weeks. But August the 29th, a day that many people, it's that day many people remember the rest of their lives. Katrina, 20 years ago today, was moving through southeast Louisiana and South Mississippi, a giant storm, a Category 3 at its 2 landfalls moving across the region. The more recent storm was Ida. That was tied as the strongest hurricane to impact Louisiana. It was a lot smaller than Katrina in size, but the actual landfalling winds were higher. And then Isaac's interesting because it was only a Category 1, and I say only a Category 1, but it caused massive flooding for areas around like Laplace. That's, if you're not familiar, just upriver here from New Orleans, thanks to a slow-moving storm. It moved in on the 28th, was here on the 29th, 30th. It crawled across the region. And so these are the 3 separate storms of the 21st century that we know August 29th will be remembered because of these 3 storms. Katrina obviously being the one most people are familiar with. Its size and how strong it was in the Gulf led to the record highest storm surge ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin over in Pass Christian, officially right at about 28 feet. Waves even taller. Of course, Katrina led to the catastrophic flooding in the city of New Orleans, levee failures, and over 1,000 deaths here in the city, over 200 deaths on the Mississippi coast. I'm thinking of you all who are remembering or trying not to remember this day 20 years ago. Ida, the more recent storm, caused bigger problems out in the bayou parishes, still caused issues along the Mississippi coast, but Ida will be the memorable storm for generations here from Houma, Terrebonne Parish, Lafourche, the river parish just got hammered with those strong winds from Ida. Here in New Orleans, we got the outer eye wall, or the eye wall of Ida that came through and produced some damaging winds. The entire metropolitan area lost power back in 2021 as that storm made landfall as a Cat 4 with 150-mile-per-hour sustained winds. There were stronger wind gusts, but remember, we base the category of a hurricane off of sustained winds. Isaac was a storm back in 2012, and what the problem was with Isaac was it was a giant storm, but it was extremely slow. And you have to remember the geography of the southeast Louisiana and South Mississippi coast is about as prime as you can get for storm surge. One, you get water funneled into this area right here between the Mississippi River and the land here. So water gets funneled in. Well, when water gets funneled in, it rises naturally. But there's also another problem for storm surge here, and it's the shallow continental shelf. This little area in here is called the Mississippi Sound, and the water there is not very deep at all. Water doesn't really get deep until you get further out here in the Gulf waters, and so the water piles up. Since the shallow shelf is there, water piles up even faster and more dramatically. Same thing in Lake Pontchartrain. You get water flowing into Lake Bourne here, Lake Catherine, Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Maurepas. The water has to rise and it spreads around the basin, whether it be the North Shore. It was Katrina. They flooded just so terribly up in the North Shore, St. Tammany area. South Shore also got water coming in on this direction, but also got water coming in from Lake Bourne. And so Katrina was just one of those perfect recipes for record-breaking surge between the size of the storm and the exact path of the storm. Now, Isaac crawled across the coastal areas there, which led to water being funneled into these areas for days. And the water just piled up and piled up. And it really was a problem out in the Laplace area because the water was flowing into the lake because circulation of Isaac was like this. And so you got water piling into the lake, pushing into portions of the river parishes. St. John Parish and St. Charles got it very, very bad there. Since then, they have started to build some things. We also saw similar flooding for Ida. When Ida was coming through, you had a strong wind pushing water that direction as well. And so they've been trying to build a levee protection system out in the river parishes to protect that. But I know Isaac is remembered as a bad storm for areas around Laplace and those surrounding communities. Ida remembered all across southeast Louisiana, Katrina as well, especially from Plaquemines Parish, its first landfall, up through Mississippi coast, where areas are, still see evidence of Katrina to this day. But my goodness, the Mississippi coast has really come back over the past 10 years and 20 years at that. So that's looking back at August 29th. I know a lot of people don't even want to think about it on this day, but that's what happened with those 3 notable storms in the 21st century. Let's talk about the current tropics. You know, it's August 29th. I'm not tracking any thunderstorm. I'm not tracking any tropical storm or hurricane, which is somewhat rare for this date and has happened. This right here is the Hurricane Center's next spot to track. It's a long ways out. Anytime you have a feature that is thousands and thousands of miles away from the Caribbean, let alone the United States, you really don't need to stress about it. Weather enthusiasts are the ones that are watching this closely. And we could see there, well, there's not a whole lot. This tropical wave, though, coming out of Nigeria a few days ago, is going to continue to travel off into the Atlantic. We do see signs now that this may try to develop some in the next week or so. This thing is not going to do anything over the next 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, I don't even think. So here we go. Let's track it with our 2 models. There's the tropical wave emerging. When does it emerge off the continent of Africa? Well, by around this weekend, Sunday into Monday, the first day of September, here on Labor Day. Cabo Verde Islands, I would watch this closely. You could get some heavy rain depending on how much or how close it gets to you. But watch out in motion. Both models are agreeing now that, hey, we may have a tropical system trying to form here by the end of next week. 1 week from today, September the 5th, could we have a storm out here? It's possible. Now, whether this actually has any potential to reach the U.S., we don't know. I will say, anytime we get to September, storms that form further out this direction, they have a really hard time being a problem for the Gulf waters. Anytime we get a storm in September or October here closer to the Gulf, it usually has got to form a bit closer, and so this may not be a bad thing for the U.S. here. August storms that form out here can or do sometimes travel further west. They get stuck under this ridge, but we get into September and we start to get these more prominent troughs of low pressure, which is what we have right now, and sometimes they can steer these things out to sea. We'll hope that happens, but it's still too early to say for sure what happens with that long term. If that does end up becoming our next named storm, Gabrielle is our G storm this year. Umberto after that, Imelda, Jerry, Karen, Lorenzo, Melissa, Nestor, and so on. Hopefully we don't meet any of these storms, but I just want to remind you, now that we're getting to the end of August, September is still the most active month for hurricane season. You're talking about the majority of tropical systems, tropical storms to hurricanes to major hurricanes, mostly happen in the month of September. The yellow are tropical storms and hurricanes. The red show just hurricanes. Your purple here at the bottom are your major hurricanes. You can see September sticks out for all 3 of those categories as the busiest of the months. Now, you can't let your guard down in October. We have had some bad storms in October on the Gulf Coast. Hurricane Michael's a great example. One of the only 4 Category 5s to make landfall in the U.S. October storm. We've had a major hurricane in New Orleans 2 days before Halloween, Zeta back in 2020. Now, 2020 was one of those seasons like 2005 that are extremely rare. There were just so many storms being spit out. But it's just a reminder that we do have to stay prepared, usually all the way through at least the 3rd week of October. Here in New Orleans and Texas and the northern Gulf and the kind of the western half, after the middle part of October, we're usually doing okay. Now, the East Coast and Florida may need to watch a little bit further on into the season, but that's what we have standing ahead of us. Wrapping up August here soon on a quiet note, hoping that it stays quiet for a while longer. That's going to do it for your tropical weather impact on this August 29th. I hope everyone has a wonderful and safe Labor Day weekend. We will see you right back here on Monday with the latest on what we're tracking in the tropics.